Fear is that paralyzing thing that stops us from making stupid decisions, but it can also just as well prevent us from taking control. As humans, we really want to take control. I'm going to assume that you are no different. If you're here listening to this, it's because you want something. But just as we're about to jump, a little voice in the back of our mind pipes up and it stops us. Some of us have a voice that's a little more kind than others. Some of our voices simply justify putting it off. And yet some of our voices go so far as to convince us that we aren't capable, or we don't deserve it, or that we'll just fail because we're no good. So where does this little voice come from? Well, I've got some good news. You're not crazy for hearing this voice. Fear is totally normal. Don't believe anybody who says that you need to be fearless. Fearlessness is a luxury reserved for sociopaths and liars. To fear for your well-being is implicitly connected to the human experience. It's not something that you can throw away, just as a gearbox isn't something you can throw away from a car. So since we're human beings and we like to learn, I'm going to teach you a little bit about the history of the human brain and why fear is such an integral part of our story. Here's the thing about humans. We like to change the environment a lot. The catch here is that we have changed much more slowly than the world that we've created. Despite the fact that we've escaped the food chain and we've invented a bunch of really cool stuff, and most of us need to be concerned with raw survival every day, our brain has remained largely unchanged for the last 200,000 years. See, evolution takes place over large periods of time, and we've changed the world immensely in the last 10,000 years alone. So why does this matter? Okay, well, in the early stage of life evolving on this planet, organisms remained quite simple. They'd scour their environment for some food and they'd either succeed or fail. As we became more and more complex, we developed brains to process the world around us. This allowed us to make decisions and better survive. And here's where fear steps in. At some point, brains evolved to process what we call fear. This would have been pretty small at first, but it would have had an impact. Say for a moment that you're a simple life form running around a hostile planet with your friend who is also pretty simple. You both happen across a huge chasm full of hot lava from a fresh volcano that's nearby. Your friend, who is arguably more simple than you, doesn't experience fear, and so with a smile, he jumps across the chasm and he calls for you to do the same. You look down at the lava and you judge the distance. Something in your brain makes you feel uncomfortable. It makes you feel afraid. You're not sure why, but you don't want to jump. And it's a good thing too, because your friend just toppled to his death and disappeared in a burst of flames. So what happened here? Fear. It's the brain's warning mechanism, and it saved you. You walked along the chasm and you found a better way over or around it. You survived to live another day. This survival means that you get a chance to procreate and your fearless friend doesn't. This means the gene pool is now leaning towards the next generation having a similar brain, a brain that experiences fear. This goes on and on and on for millions and millions of years, and fear increases in importance, ensuring that we survive. And now here you are. You've inherited that fear from a lineage long before your time. But here's the thing. We no longer live in a world where we deal with these sorts of threats every day, but we still experience the fear, and your brain is still firing off alarm bells at you all the time. See, your brain likes predictability. It likes to keep things the same old way because it can safely assume that the same old way is safe. If you're still alive, then the same old way must be working. With predictability comes the assurance of safety. And in biology, this is called homeostasis. Basically, organisms will respond to anything going on in their environment that threatens to change being comfortable. So you have to ask yourself where this comes from. It tends to be very specific things that we imagine when we're afraid. We hear a sound behind us at night and we immediately might imagine a creepy man in a black coat with a knife tucked behind his back. Or maybe we experience even more specific fear, like we're afraid to go for a ride in a red car. These fears are highly related to the time that you're living in. These weren't things that someone living 100,000 years ago could have been afraid of. These things just weren't in their environment. Something is giving context to your fear. Something is giving it a face. And it's that same thing that we can hijack to get around the fear. See, your brain on the inside, beneath the odd-looking cauliflower-type exterior, is actually a bunch of highly linked pathways. Along these pathways, there are nodes called neurons, and it's these that hold on to information and memories, things that we've learned, things we have experienced. A cluster of these neurons somewhere in your brain is holding information that allows you to recognize yourself every day when you look in the mirror. It's also holding information somewhere about what you're afraid of. See, if you were in a car accident when you were younger and the car was red, well, that would be recorded by your brain. Anything life-threatening is seared into our mind. Our brain then forms connections between these nodes and associates them together, which means that even if you don't remember the car accident, just looking at a red car can make you feel afraid. Somewhere deep in your mind, there is a neuron cluster that helps you identify a car, which is linked to the color red, which together are linked to the feeling of having your life threatened. When you think of a red car, the electricity that you're stimulating that area of your brain with, it bleeds into other connections that are nearby, like fear. And that's where it comes from. So you're literally not afraid of what's happening to you or what's happening right now, but more so what has happened to you. Let's test this out. I'm going to say a word, and then I'll continue to link it to related ideas to display how your day-to-day train of thought works. Okay. Green. Apple. Tree. Bird. Cage. Zoo. Lion. Africa. So green links to apple, can link to the concept of a tree, then to a bird, then to a cage, then to a zoo, then to a lion, then to Africa. And that's a train of thought. So from green, we get to Africa very quickly because of these links. These links are strengthened by thinking. What's thought about together binds together. And this is where we can take back some control. You're literally a product of your thoughts. You can force yourself to relate more positive concepts together by talking to yourself. In doing so, you can weaken the associations to the negative thoughts that you used to feel and strengthen the connections to positive thoughts. After a time, this will literally change the structure of your brain, and the thing that you were afraid of will be redefined. So the goal isn't to defeat fear, it's to rebrand it. A stronger force than thinking is experiencing. To relate this to the idea of starting a business, the longer that you don't do it, the more you condition your brain to seek comfort in your current state. You will relate homeostasis, your comfort zone, to what you're doing now, which is maybe being an employee or working in a job that you don't like. So the sooner you give yourself the chance to start a business and experience it, the sooner you can reassociate it in your brain and get past the fear. To start relating homeostasis and your comfort zone to this new thing that you're doing. Expand your comfort zone so that your fear is encapsulated and it will be redefined on your terms. I've gone on a lot longer than I'd wished at the outset, but it's a pretty complex topic and I hope I've done it justice to some of you out there. I personally find that knowing this stuff helps me to realize when fear is valid and I can actually die, like jumping from a plane, or when fear is nothing more than my conditioned voice automatically firing back at me. The thing is, if we don't take control of that voice, then are we really making decisions? Or is our past experience making decisions for us? Just stop and think about that for a moment. Anyway, if you'd like to know more and take even more control, check out The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge. It'll give you even more information, and the act of reading it will even begin to reassociate how you see yourself, which is a great thing. At the end of the day, the best way to overcome fear is by reconditioning yourself. And you do this by thinking and by doing. So I've got one more thing to share on the topic of doing things.
Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it! Some people dream of success while you're going to wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not going to stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it! If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up.